Welcome back to Steel and Vance. These are cookies.
Yes, and they're fancy cookies because it's Movember. Can you see that there's a theme?
Yes.
That's from Canna Health. And I mean, they're pretty clever. Mine is maybe X-rated, but it's all for a good cause because we're talking about men's health.
We are,
this
indeed.
month.
And anybody who's had their lives touched by prostate cancer, and so many have. I've had on three occasions, in fact, my dad, my stepdad, and my uncle, wanting to get the word out to men about their health and being proactive about, in particular, their prostate health.
Yeah, because just as much as women don't love going for the pap smear
Or the
this is
mammogram.
something that you have to do, because if you don't take care of your health and you let things go too long, you could get yourself in a real jackpot situation.
And there was a time where the test was one that men would very much want to avoid. And to explain that and where we've come from, the glove, the digit test, as it were, we bring in one of the foremost urologists in the country. Dr. Martin Gleave is our guest. Thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me.
What are some of the most misinformed pieces of information that are out today about prostate cancer testing?
I think one is that prostate cancer is a disease that men die with rather than of. That's a partial truth. It remains the number one or most common cancer, the number two cause of cancer death in men across the country. And so it is important to detect it early. Another misconception is that as long as you have no symptoms, you don't have prostate cancer. Prostate cancer can occur and grow quite extensively before it causes any problems. And so the best way to diagnose it early, which means diagnosing it when it's still curable, is with a blood test now called the PSA blood test. It's been well established that this is a way to establish risk for men. If your PSA is normal, you have a very low risk of developing prostate cancer or having it at that particular time. If it's elevated, it places you into a higher risk group that then deserves closer investigation.
Dr. Gleave, what are the symptoms? I know you said don't wait until you feel something or you think something is wrong, because it might be too late and that's a decision that you're going to pay for down the road. But what are the symptoms when something's going wrong?
Sure. So one of the challenges is that as men age, it's very common for them to have a slower and weaker stream, getting up at night, frequency and urgency of urination. That's just caused by an enlarging prostate gland, which is very common with age. And yet it's also one of the symptoms that a locally advanced prostate cancer can have. It just so happens that benign enlargement is much more common, and that causes anxiety, but that's fine. A PSA can be done to help reassure a person that his symptoms are due to a benign enlargement and not due to a cancer.
Mm-hmm.
More specifically, it is metastasized or spread elsewhere in the body. It can cause pain in the hips or the back. Prostate cancer, when it spreads, most commonly goes to the bone, and it can result in bone pain. Again, low back pain, hip pain is commonly caused by arthritis, other age-related events that we all have to sort of interpret.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be able to capture and diagnose prostate cancer before it spreads to the bone, because at that time it's not curable.
So, Dr. Gleave, we were talking off the top, women don't like going for the regular pap smears nor the mammograms, all the maintenance that we do, but we do it and we talk about it. And men don't have discussions generally the way women do about their health and wellness and about getting those checks and getting ahead of it, if you will. Maybe don't even have a physician, haven't had a regular physical. Can you go to a walk-in clinic if you don't have a GP and say, hey, can I get a PSA blood test?
Yes, you can. And most of the time the system will pay for it and should pay for it. sometimes a physician may say, well, if you have no symptoms, then you have to pay $30 for it. And that's fine. You should pay for it. But I also think the system should pay for a PSA blood test because it has the same levels of evidence at lowering risk of death from prostate cancer than, say, a mammogram does for breast cancer.
Right.
So I think that you're right. Women have been part of a culture of talking about health from a time of teenagers and having and raising children. Men tend to ignore that. It is changing. And one of the things that helps it change, especially as it relates to prostate cancer, is that you don't need to talk about having the finger test. It's just a blood test, PSA.
Right. That's
it's much more accurate than having to go in and have the prostate checked. It's not to say that you shouldn't if there's a suspicion, but the initial test is a PSA blood test. And from there, and this is one of the advances, in the past 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you had an elevated PSA, it usually led directly to a biopsy.
Right.
And a biopsy is uncomfortable and has risks. Now we interject with an MRI scan. And so if your PSA is elevated and you get an MRI and it's normal, then 40% of those elevated PSAs can be reassured and said, you don't need anything else. But if the MRI is suspicious and the remaining 60%, then that MRI actually helps our biopsy become more accurate. So it's just another way that over time, technologies help us continue to evolve the tests that we have, making them more precise and appropriate in selected people. And so that's a big advance.
Yeah, it takes the fear out of it a bit.
It does. There's so much going on
Yeah.
and the medical developments and new technologies. So, I mean, there's hope in the future. But I think the message we want to leave as we wrap this up is just that, you know, take your own health into your own hands and make sure that you're being proactive, talking to your doctor and having regular checkups. Dr. Martin Gleave, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a really important conversation.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. All right, guys. And gals, talk to your guys about it, because there is no greater feeling than the day that you receive the results that your mammogram is clear or your pap smear is clear. So your prostate test, as nerve-wracking as it might be to go get that PSA, you'll never feel better than when the doctor goes, you're fine, see you next year.
Yeah.
Right.
So do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Coming up next, would you pay $1,000 for a skirt that looks like a towel?
Oh, I just can't even believe
What
this.
the hell is wrong with people? That's coming up next.
Also coming up, viewing party. Hello, lots of prizes up for grabs here, and it starts with Mike in Maple Ridge. Hello, Mike.
We have Mitch in New Westminster. Hi.
Excellent. I love this. Sumi and Ruth in Elk Lake. Aw.
With a nice pussycat. And Vera in Peachland. Thank you all for watching.
I love how people listen to you and got themselves into the
Yeah,
picture.
we love actually seeing your face.
Viewing party at CHEKmedia.ca is how you enter and play along and watch along with Steele and Vance.